Well, welcome back to the relay. Tonight we're going to be talking about something quite a bit more at the deep end of the pool, and that is hard things, hard conversations about being a man and what it means to be a friend. Hope you enjoy it.
If you're out there and you want to find some good friends, lean into things that make you comfortable to start with, and then you'll find some friends.
But what if you don't? Like, I've gone long periods of time where, for whatever reason, and I'm trying to struggle with it now because I'm just thinking about it, where I'm not picking up the phone, sending a quick text.
You don't have to worry about that. If you're doing that with right intentions, that's the freedom that allows you to kind of be your best self.
It was a big thing for me at that point to find something that I could still do and reflect upon and feel really good about in the moment.
For me, I do feel lonely, or I did feel lonely, particularly when I reflect on my youth. I went to an all-guys school and I enjoyed tremendously close adolescent male friendships because I went to an all-guys school. And then when I realized when I went to university that those types of male friendships were not just unusual, but they were almost impossible to obtain. I kind of just buried myself in work and buried myself in my family, but it does leave a hole for what I think I needed, and perhaps I might speculate all men benefit from, and that is the ability to kind of share things that you just check in, like, hey, is this normal? Or, hey, you having these challenges? Or, hey, did your shoulder hurt when you got out of the pool because you're old like I am? And that sense of belonging, I think, is something that we're missing. We're more connected. I feel like we're more connected with technology than ever before, but it feels lonely. And so for me, actually taking the hard step and making an investment. And so part of me is like, if you want to have friends, you got to be a friend. And the way I can be a friend is support each other, recognizing that by being a friend, you're actually getting the best friends. And I think there's kind of a modern transactionality, perhaps making up words here, but you can't expect a return on that investment. It has to be something that you don't count, because the more you give, the more you get. And that's been what I think has been our journey. I think that's been my journey in the last little while. And I share that because you can make it too complicated, or you don't apply it enough. So it's just as simple as showing up and saying, good job on your breaststroke, Graham. So that's it for me.
So I think a question of friendship rooted in loneliness was the kick on this one. And that's where my head's been, even though you guys have been talking. Like how we deal with loneliness, or how other people deal with loneliness. It's difficult. I know I've got friends and we can say all these things about, connecting and make sure you're going out and doing that. But what if you don't? Like, I've gone long periods of time where, for whatever reason, and I'm trying to struggle with it now because I'm just thinking about it, where I'm not picking up the phone, sending a quick text. Simple. I don't know why I'm not doing it. So I can ask you guys what I can do, but and even kind of, we were talking before, like, these are still recent friendships. And I've got friendships that go back years and years, decades, where when we do connect, it's like we haven't missed a beat.
Wow.
Right? It's just, you just get back into your old habits. But I still find, like, I don't know if I'm busy at work or busy with life or busy with whatever excuse I'm just currently writing out. Like, why aren't I picking up the phone and making those calls? Not an answer. I'm just asking a question. So maybe I'll work on that.
I think everybody seeks friendship, and everybody wants to have someone to talk to and share stuff to. I think lean into what you're comfortable with first, because it's those vulnerable situations that we talked about in episode 1, where and swimming gave that to us. We put ourselves out there, and then you build some friendships based on that. It doesn't have to be swimming. If you're out there and you want to find some good friends, lean into things that make you comfortable to start with, and then you'll find some friends, and be okay, putting yourself out there. I know it's a hard thing to do, but if it's swimming, or if it's like anything, use that as the springboard to building a good a friendship because, yeah, again, you're only as good as your team, and try to find some people to help support you in life. You shouldn't do it alone. Again, I've been fortunate to have some really good friends, and I know some of my friends may be listening to this, so you guys are awesome too. But yeah, lean into that, and it starts with something. So, because we have busy lives. For us, it's swimming. That's what this came from, but it doesn't have to be that.
I think it's carving out the time too.
Carving at the time. Yeah, exactly. And that's, we live busy lives, right?
But starting it, and I think why I feel good with you guys is, taking those uncomfortable days where you're tired or just exhausted and going, nope, I gotta keep on it.
Yeah.
And it's difficult. Like, it's difficult to balance that with all of our other things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, on that note too, sometimes it's also okay to not show up and not be there all the time, and give yourself the time to take a break. I don't want swimming to become all consuming, and to a point where if I don't make it to practice, or if I don't swim in a swim meet, or if I'm not there for one of the relays, that I get beat up over it. I mean, because I need to take the time for myself and rest. And so, yeah.
Or you line up behind the wrong lane.
Or you line up. That's a story for another podcast. That's the nerves of it all. That's a story for another one. My first event back.
So I'll share a story and a strategy that had worked for me. And because I always feel that I love reading, and I just find a lot of wisdom in some learning from others. I think it's said that you can experience life yourself, and if it's hard, you get experienced. But if you experience life through the experiences of others and learn from them, that's wisdom. And so one of the wisdoms that Tony Robbins shared is that pain isn't designed to cause you, the universe isn't giving you pain to cause you discomfort, it's causing you, hoping you change something. And that's maybe perhaps a simplification for everything, but it's informed some of the strategies that come out of difficult situations for me. So most of my time is spent as a litigator. And so I'll go into court and I'll argue cases, and sometimes they're quite pleasant, sometimes they're exhausting. Sometimes I'll just get yelled at, like a lot. Like, the kind of stuff that people go, that doesn't happen in 2023. Well, it happens. I remember years ago, there was a situation where it was, maybe I deserved it, maybe I didn't, but it was pretty intense. And I just remember feeling really, really stressed about the whole situation. And it wasn't actually that bad looking back, but at the time it seemed like a big deal, like most big things do. And so I came up with something called the Anguish Rock process. So pre-COVID, I literally got a bunch of rocks, and I brought them into the HR manager's office, and I said, listen, I'm going to walk around with this in my pocket until I feel silly enough that I just let it go. And we had something called a Buddha board, and it's this thing you write on with water, and you write down what it is. And it was amazing how the actual act of, I couldn't change it, but I kept reliving it. And like, what are you going to do about it? So I walk around these rocks, and I finally felt silly enough to go in and drop the rock in the bucket, the Anguish Rock, and I wrote on the board, the thing that was bugging me, and it kind of left. And so what I learned there was something that people have been talking about for a long time, and that's the power to forgive yourself and forgive others who you might feel kind of annoyed with. And living in that present state was a really hard thing to do, because it's so much more comfortable to hang on to something and be like, oh, well, I didn't deserve that. Well, I probably did, frankly. Like, if I'm being really honest, if I'm getting yelled at in court, I'm sure I deserved it. At least that's going to be what I say, because any other version of perception to that doesn't give me the power to move on. And so that was a really hard thing, and that's been working for me really, really well. Seems like if I swim a race, it goes weird, got disqualified, you can cry about it, but what are you going to do about it? Well, Anguish rocking. There we go. I do actually have a bucket of rocks.
Do other people in the office, have they leaned into that, or?
I don't know. I'd have to ask HR, because it's confidential.
Oh, I guess it's confidential. Okay.
That's what makes it special, yeah. Who wants the goggles?
I don't know. This is the question about like a recent challenging situation that you've worked through and what's worked. I don't know that my situation is all that different or special than maybe a situation that a lot of people had experienced. But with COVID, and I guess all of my joyful outlets, I'll call them, getting together with friends, going out for drinks, going for swim, going for a run even, or a bike or something. It just felt like it was so much harder to do, whether it was actually or wasn't. And it was my mindset for a long period of time, and the lens that I just viewed everything as. Like everything is going to get me sick if I touch it, or I wasn't germophobing it to the nth degree or anything, but I just felt a little bit more challenged to do anything in that regard. And then on top of that, the isolation itself, like we're talking about how valuable friendships are. And as a guy, I feel like it's mostly built on doing something together. Like guys, my experience is I don't call up my friends and just be like, hey, want to talk for like an hour and just chat about whatever. It's, hey, do you want to go do X at this time? And be like, yeah, sure, let's go do that. And then you go do that, and then you have that conversation. But without having that outlet to be an excuse for getting together to have that conversation, it was really challenging for me to find ways to maintain connections, with friends that you've had for a long time, and or do things that I know are good for me, like getting out and exercising. And the thing that worked for me, and this might not be a big revelation or anything, but it was just looking back over photos of times that I really enjoyed. And it was, sequential from, today all the way back, 20 years. And I would look at some of my favorite photos and send them in an email to the person who was in the photo with me or who the photo reminded me of, and write a really heartfelt email about how important that person was in my life at that moment, and just share that I value that a lot, and that's helping me today. And it was great. It was I got some really good responses. I got some no responses. Sometimes it's hard to receive stuff like that. It's almost like a compliment, like, hey, like, you're a really good friend of mine, and this is an amazing time, and you helped me through this difficult time today. And it was a big thing for me at that point to find something that I could still do and reflect upon and feel really good about in the moment, and hopefully provide that joy to that other person too, in a moment that I perceived everybody to be hurting a little bit. And that's how I tried to make a bit of an impact and show up when it was hard to for me, because I didn't have an hour on the phone with a regular phone call. So that was, I thought that was kind of cool, but maybe it's not that cool. It was good for me.
That's amazing. I think our friendship just went from here to here. That's a really cool story. Thanks for sharing that, man.
Yeah.
I'm curious. So you got some feedback back. You didn't get any feedback. Did you get any negative feedback? Like, how did you deal with?
Yeah, no negative feedback, which is good.
Yeah.
Some like, hey man, like, really miss hanging out with you too, kind of thing. Thanks for sending these. And then even some like months later would send some back in a similar fashion, or like share through a peer-to-peer photo sharing thing and say like, oh yeah, I got these ones too. Remember this? And so it kind of like rekindled a lot of friendships that, were really good back like 10, 20 years ago. And then people move apart and, just become less frequent. That I used to live in a dorm with like tons of guys, and we'd all be friends and hang out every day and run into each other. And then we all grow up and have families, and I don't want to hold on to that life. I think you and I've had a conversation about this. Yeah. It's like you can't relive that life or hold on to it forever, because then it's kind of sad at some point, right? Like you want more. And now that we've achieved a lot of the things that we wanted to achieve when we were younger, you got to let go of some of that lifestyle. And but for me, that rekindling of that relationship, even just to chat or as simple as it is, like it took me a long time to go through the photos. That was a long process, but it was good. And then the email itself was like 5 minutes. Yeah. And for me, it changed my day profoundly. And I hope it had a similar effect on people who didn't respond. But I know other people that did respond, it was very positive.
Did you? Which is great. Sorry, which is great advice for like the original question. What can you do? It's hard. You have to put yourself out there. What can you do to either get a friend or maintain a friendship or rekindle an old friendship? Is first step is put yourself out there, make a move, and there's some selfish reasons to it, but there's also you want to see, you genuinely want to reconnect and get that. Great, man, great story.
Yeah, I was trying to put myself into you writing this email. I would have hesitated on the send. Did you hesitate on the send?
No, oddly enough, I hesitated because I didn't include a spreadsheet. These were all the days we hang out, and this is how many beers we had.
Just blew the audio.
Yeah. No, it was, for me, it was I don't know, I know there's a word for it, it's escaping me right now, but it was a process that was completed by sending. And so for me, it was like a release of guilt for not doing something or not reaching out. It was like, when you reach out to like a family member who you haven't spoken to in a while, and you're like, oh, I'm obligated to phone this person or talk or visit this person. And it's a relief once you do it, because it's actually fun when you meet or you chat on the phone and you make that connection. And so for me, the clicking the send, like it was just like, that's it, I'm sharing it. Like that's, and yeah, it was really good. Cathartic? It's
Catharsis.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great that the act of sending it was the benefit, and then everything else was icing on the cake.
That's exactly what it was. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because for me, like the process was completed. I improved my day tremendously. Even just thinking about how much joy that would give me to receive something like that. Like, can you imagine like one of your best friends from 20 years ago sends this email with a bunch of photos and it's like, hey man, I really value you. And all these awesome things we did together just reminded me of this today. And thanks for making my day brighter. Like,
yeah, it's a good bit of advice for folks. And what you said earlier, Graham, is that some of those old friendships, time passes, but when you just reach out, that time just goes away.
It's like instant sometimes.
Yeah. So I think we all have good friends, and sometimes we just forget we do. Even in history, we've touched somebody's lives, or they've touched our lives in a way, and we've just got busy. It's just hit send. Good advice, man. Hit send. Write an email. Hit send.
Well, and so my feeling there is like that kind of, I don't know if it's anxiety in that send, like you're doing this whole thing. And you wonder if it would have been on the other side too. Like if someone would have maybe compiled all that and they just left it in the outbox.
Yeah.
Right. You never know, but it's the ability, so kudos to you to
Thanks. Yeah.
hit go.
And for me, like, I don't know what happened when the person didn't send something back, right? Like it could have been any number of things. And I don't worry about what happened. And I guess that's the thing that made it easier for me to send it, was because the intent was good, right? So the intent was the person receiving it has a good feeling, but also that it could have gotten sent in the junk email. They may not have the email address anymore. It's 20 years old. Right?
Yeah.
They may not have gotten it at all.
Hotmail.com?
Yeah.
MySpace.
Still a Hotmail? Still,
MySpace.
But the value was like also for me in just getting that off my chest. Like, letting someone know that they were huge value to me and are, right? Like and hopefully that worked for them too. Even if they did the same thing, we're like writing an email response like, oh, this is too corny, or I don't know how to respond to this. Like I didn't want this email. Yeah, it's weird. It is
Cool.
Sorry, that was a bit of a sidetrack.
No, it's fine. I was hoping that it would sidetrack away from me having answered the question, because I don't have anything.
Yeah, I don't carry a lot of that like guilt with me on a regular basis. And I think, I could, answer a bunch of ways, but the easiest way for me to answer is I think I'm just too busy to take focus on that on a regular basis. And so I'm scrolling through videos or, on watching TV or shows and stuff like that. So it doesn't, I don't think about it on a regular basis. It's only when I reacted to my perceived shift in my emotional state where I thought, hey, like something, I got to do something for me. And so it was maybe a bit selfish in that regard, and saying like, hey, I gotta fix me. And so in doing that, I was just reflecting, and then realizing that the joy that I was receiving from reflecting on the photos wasn't because I was there in the moment, because I was there in the moment with these people. And so, doing these things with these people made it really valuable to me. So sharing that with them was valuable. And I think it is tough to take stock and think like, now is the time when I should be reaching out, or this is the time when I should be reaching out. And to be clear, I don't hold anybody to a standard of, if I haven't talked to them in a month, and, we're going to put the friendship on a little bit of a cold on the back burner, and then we're going to move it off the stove, and then we're going to let the pot cool. And I'm in the belief that, things happen for a reason at some level, and I don't understand all of those levels, nor will I ever attempt to. And my state and triggers might be different than someone else's state and triggers. And so when it's reciprocated, and sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't, it's a joy to receive that for me. And I think it's just, I don't really have anything profound to say about it. It's really interesting to have those things happen from time to time, because you've developed a really good relationship and friendship. And there's some moments where that won't happen, and you really yearn for it, but don't receive it. And I'm not ever going to be like, man, I really could have used a friend today, and he didn't show up for me. I could have used a friend today, and I want to show up for them. And so I take that on myself instead of waiting for someone else to do that for me. I don't know if that makes sense or if it's helpful at all, but I don't carry a lot of guilt with not reaching out, because I know that it's just a busy life for everybody. And I'm not hurt by other friends not reaching out, because again, I know that it's busy for everybody. But when you can find time and the effort, and you feel like pressing send, to that point, it's really nice to send, and it's really nice to receive. And I think that's similar to gift giving in general. Like, as a gift giver, you're more excited to see the person's face opening the gift than you are to open a gift from someone else on a regular basis. So I think, I don't know, all of that ties into, I don't know, maybe that feeling. Yeah.
Well, you know what? No one's talking about hard things. I mean, I don't know if we want to cut in there, or if this is an appropriate time to talk about, I think one of the zeitgeists that distinguishes us from, I don't want to be perceived as criticizing other groups of men. Mm-hmm. But when I think about what we do differently, some of the principles we kind of adhere to, like you were just sharing about how everything you did was done with positive intent. You guys just exude positive intent all the time. And there's the people that I find hard to be around are the people that they're you said the chest puffing up, mm-hmm. or the sarcasm or the cutting comments, and you withdraw because you're so busy putting up your guard that you can't actually let it down to hit send. Mm-hmm. And so it's funny because I've wrestled with who's safe, who isn't. And when you talk about doing things together as guys in activities, it's because at least there's safety in the activity. There's an expectation there. And I think we've got a lot of maturing to do, or accountability as men to, like, I always, if it's corny, like, that's awesome that you do that. But, would someone get that and go, what does John want to sell me? I certainly, like, it's so pure and it's so intense, but the fact that someone might have a negative perception of that's on them. And so I think for me, what I've learned from you today, John, is that you don't have to worry about that. If you're doing that with right intentions, that's the freedom that allows you to kind of be your best self. Mm-hmm. So thanks for that. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, that was good. This has all been good. I think this is what we, a year ago, sitting around the table, this is what we were talking about, just recording this. And if anyone gets a benefit from it, then great. But if not, we're having a great conversation.
Yeah, at that time we were talking about having an iPhone in the middle of the table.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good.
Well, gentlemen, cheers to you.
Yeah, cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you.